Just a quick thought on the obedience of Jesus as described in Hebrews 5 verse 8, where it says, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. And we also know about that part in Philippians 2. He made himself of no reputation. He made himself lower than the angels, it also says in Hebrews. And that whole concept of God having to be obedient, which implies at some point there was disobedience, which we know isn't true if we believe the Bible, that he was the perfect lamb offered for us, the perfect sacrifice. And I've thought that it could mean he learned of obedience through his suffering. In other words, what it would take for us to obey. He learned how impossible it would be for us to obey. That's why he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, because he understood at that point, he learned something, that it would be impossible for us to ever obey. We couldn't do it. That's why we needed to be forgiven, because the only thing that was going to take away our sins was his forgiveness, not our obedience. So to that extent, in his suffering, him suffering for our sins like a man, he learned about that aspect of obedience. And the other thing I thought about it is that he became obedient as in he surrendered his rightful place as king by becoming that man, to where he would have to become obedient like a man would be, feeling all the temptations a man would, having all the struggles and the torment within, the conflict within, between his flesh and his spirit. Even though he would overcome, he would feel that to the extent that we do. He subjected himself even to, that is, he was obedient in that he subjected himself to such a thing. Whereas it says God cannot be tempted. So that means it's impossible. You cannot tempt God. But he was tempted. God as a man was tempted. He was obedient like a man would have to be obedient. Anyway, that's my thought. In Jesus' name.